Envy is to want that which belongs to another. And the Bible is very clear that it is a sin. In the Ten Commandments, it says, "Thou shalt not covet anything that's of your neighbor's, be it his wife, his donkey, his ox, his servant, nothing." So how can we overcome this sin of envy? Remember, it comes in three forms: comparison, complaining, criticizing, and ingratitude. There's a story that's found in John 3, and I'm going to read it in its entirety, and then we're going to break it down. It says here in verse 25 that there arose a dispute between John's disciples and the Jews. And they came to John and said to him, "Rabbi, he who is with you beyond the Jordan, to whom you have testified, behold, he is baptizing, and all are coming to him." John answered and said, "A man can receive nothing unless it has been given to him from heaven. You yourselves bear witness that I said, I am not the Christ, but I have been sent before him. He who has the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bride, or the best man, who stands and hears him, rejoices greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. Therefore this joy of mine is fulfilled." And lastly, verse 30, "He must increase, but I must decrease." My prayer is that we will respond like John. Check out how John responded. His disciples come and they start to complain, because as the popularity of Jesus starts to increase, their popularity starts to decrease. But John the Baptist was given one mission: to declare or to prepare the way of the Lord. And so as soon as the seeds of envy starts to come up in the hearts of the disciples, John could either entertain that and also become upset, or he could respond the way that he did. Had he responded with envy, this would drastically and dramatically ruin the progress of the gospel. But John says this, the first thing he says is, "I am not going to covet a mission that belongs to another." And then John says, "Listen, I am not Christ. I am not him. God gave me one thing to do, and God gave Christ another thing to do. So instead of covet, I am going to rejoice greatly, because our mission, boys, it has been fulfilled. Christ has come, and the multitudes are now flocking to him. So we're going to rejoice greatly." We must do the same. We need to understand first and foremost that God has given each and every one of us different missions, talents, and abilities. Then when we see the success of others, we need to rejoice greatly. And then John says in verse 29 that his joy is fulfilled. When we look at our own gifts and our own abilities, and we look at how God used us as instruments in his hands, we need to express gratitude, because our joy will be fulfilled. And then finally, John says this, guys, we need to decrease, that Christ must increase. Now, here's the thing about John. John was just like you and me. And I'm sure he was tempted to allow for envy to start seeping through his veins. But John also understood something, that what envy really is love of self. But divine love had touched John's heart in such a way that he started to become transformed. And the love of self was swallowed up in love for Christ. We must love Christ, because when we love Christ, we will respond exactly the way John responded. You see, envy is the reason why Joseph was sold to slavery. Envy is the reason why Abel was killed. But 1 Peter 2:1 says that we must get rid of envy, that we must put it away. And my prayer is that we would put it away, and that we would respond like John. Respond by understanding that God has given us individual missions. Respond by rejoicing greatly at the success of others. Responding by expressing gratitude. And finally, understanding that all of us, we must decrease, that Christ must increase. Because when we do that, envy will be found nowhere near us. And yet, in its place will be found the supreme love of Christ.